came to, and my daughter was crawling around on the floor, and I had such a profound awareness, and the awareness was the fact that none of the exterior stuff matters. Like, there was no, in those moments, you know what I mean? There wasn't a stack of money or cars or houses, things like that. Like, it was the people, and so what matters the most is each other.
Yes.
And the only thing that will derail that is fear.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the fear of having to fit in, or comparison, or, I mean, listen, it talks about it in the book that I read. It says we're, driven by 100 forms of fear. We step on the toes of our fellows and they retaliate, cause and effect. When I'm afraid, I act in ways that aren't really who I am. Yeah.
Wow. This is the Mental Health Show with Robert Grigore, and I am your host, Robert Grigore. While I'm still new to hosting a show, I'm not new to mental health, both as a professional and as a client. On the professional front, I'm the founder and clinical director of Grigore Counseling and Associates, and I'm a certified EMDR therapist and approved EMDR consultant by the EMDR International Association. I'm also a published author on EMDR, and I've also been a guest on many TV interviews, podcasts, and radio shows, all on the topic of mental health. In terms of my personal life, without diving into my whole story right this second, I've certainly experienced just about the entire rainbow of mental health, from the depths of despair and hopelessness and powerlessness, depression, suicidal ideation, addiction, anxiety, to the security of comfort and calm and peace, and of course the highs of joy, passion, and love. And this show is about, you guessed it, mental health. And our guests have much wisdom to share. While our guests may have prominent positions and are successful, they too have had a past and are willing to grace us with sharing a bit about their story and to offer some guidance as to how they manage their mental health. My experience informs my perspective that nobody escapes childhood unscathed, and the statistics show that 50% of people aged 40 and above will suffer from mental illness in Canada, and furthermore, anxiety and depression rates have actually increased 33% since the pandemic. And this show is about demystifying mental health and delivering to you, our dear audience member, a path of hope, compassion, and ultimately success in your life or for your loved ones in numerous ways. From the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for tuning in. Welcome to today's episode. All right, Stacey Petersen is a nationally recognized leader in addiction and mental health with over 35 years of experience. He's coming up on celebrating his 37th year in recovery, and he has been the CEO of Cedars Recovery since October of 2021. Before Cedars, Stacey served as Executive Director of Fresh Start Recovery Center for 17 and a half years, leading the organization to national acclaim, including multiple top treatment facility awards, probably too many to recap here. He's also held key leadership roles at Simon House Recovery Center and contributed to numerous boards and committees focused on addiction, mental health, and homelessness. In 2001, Stacey was named Calgary's top 40 under 40 for leadership, and in 2011 he was the recipient of the McKillop Award, which honors individuals who demonstrated personal commitment to improving the social fabric of Calgary. And it's safe to say that since Stacey moved with his family to our beautiful province of BC on Vancouver Island, he's undoubtedly improved the lives of hundreds, if not thousands of people already. So needless to say, another award is probably due soon.
Oh, man.
Stacey, I want to thank you.
Yeah, Mark. Hey,
Long one,
hey,
man.
ladies and gentlemen, thank you. Hey, no, I mean, when you read it like that, it's like, wow, that's a lot to live up to. I mean, the reality is I'm just going to continue to do this work, and I'll do it the rest of my life, and I'll never give back what's been given to me. So, Thanks for having me on, Robert. You and I know each other. We've known each other for quite some time, and it's always a pleasure to connect with you and work with you. So, what do we got? What do you want
Yeah.
to talk about?
Gosh, you're right. We do know each other a little bit. We share a board spot on the Unlimited Worth Wellness Society with Mike Scripness running the show there. A wonderful organization there to help people with all kinds of access to resources when they need it the most. And I feel like I know you on professional side in some ways, but there's sort of like there's your personal side that I don't know. I feel like I don't know that much about. So I want to ask you some questions about just where Stacey began. Obviously, this is not a therapy session. It's my first time doing a podcast as a host. Lots of experience on the other end as a guest, but and as a therapist. So without diving into anything that's too personal you want to share,
Yeah.
tell me a little bit and the audience a little bit about where Stacey began. What was life like for you as a kid growing up, and only what you feel
Yeah.
comfortable sharing, of course.
Well, I'm just going to lay back on this couch, and I can't help but stare at the ink blotter on the back of your wall there.
Yeah. What does that
The
mean to you,
class.
Stacey?
What do you see here? Anyways, yeah, I mean, I just last May I turned 55, and I was
Happy
born in
birthday.
Calgary. I thank you. I lived in Calgary my whole life. Um, I grew up in an alcoholic family. I was,
Mm.
you know, as a kid, I always kind of felt different than others. I didn't feel like I fit in. I never really felt like I was enough. Um,
Mm.
and without realizing what was going on in the background, we talk about ACEs, adverse childhood experience, and trauma and things
Mhm.
like that. And I mean, growing up in an alcoholic family is a traumatic experience, but you don't know that at the time. You just you do the best you can to survive and all the rest of it. And now, all that said, you know, the life that I have today is as a result of where I come from and what's happened and what I've done and the choices and things like that. And they all haven't been great choices. I mean, at an early age, I started drinking, and I think, when I look back at that, what was going on in my life as a kid, if I would have been emotionally in touch with what was going on, like I couldn't handle it, I would have exploded. So did whatever I had to
Right.
do to survive and get through, and as well, so did my siblings. And and I don't look at my parents with blame. I mean, they've both passed on. My dad in 2011, my mom in 2015, and they were both sober a long time, right?
Mm.
But as kids, it wasn't that way, and um, you know, lots of conflict in their marriage, and as kids, you take that on. And I'm being the oldest male, so I felt like I had to protect my sister or my brother and stuff like that. And
Right.
when I look back after doing all the years of the work on myself, not because I'm all that, but driven by pain. The gift of desperation says you need to do something. Something's got to
Hmm.
change. Because drinking heavily and then and doing drugs as well. And I started checking out recovery when I was 17 years old. But there's no way I could be like those people because they're old. They're like, look at,
Right.
they're like 30,
Right.
and I got sober when I was 18,
Mm.
and
Wow.
clean. And um, looking at my family, and just my own experience, that bottom that occurred that people talk about, there was that piece inside where I was just tired of being tired all the time,
Right.
and I felt broken. So the gift of desperation led me to the rooms of recovery, and from there, also my career,
Amazing.
which, if I look back, said, I don't want to do that. I'm not interested in doing that. Look, everybody wants to go out and help and save the world and do all that, and I'm not down with that.
Yeah.
I think there's, for every human being, whether we believe it or not, there's four parts to us. You have mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual. And that spiritual part is that piece inside that says, hey, there's something else. There's some sort of something bigger than me that we need to do. And, and so hence going down the road of getting into recovery and working in treatment facilities. And early on in my career, I sensed and felt like, because I was brought into recovery in a atmosphere of love and support. And I was young and naive too, but I'd lived a lot of years by the time I was 18 in active addiction.
Right.
And the people that surrounded me at that time, I'm convinced I wouldn't be here if they hadn't come at me with that love, that empathy, that support. Because given where I come from, if you would have come at me with a hammer, I would have said, I'm out.
Yeah.
And there's millions of us in North America that are afflicted, and so you got to take a minute and go, how come I've got this chair? I think when our higher power, we start getting in touch with that, you got to start listening. And for me, the higher power was like, look, I got something big for you to do. So my background is social work with a smattering of accounting. So in the early days, running, Simon House and Fresh Start, I was doing all the books and the accounts and all the rest of it. But the biggest part was about building the culture and a culture of love versus fear. And I think one of the difference makers in my career is realizing that I'm not in charge, Robert. The ego has a heyday with that, hey, but I'm not in charge. I wake up every single day and I pray for the guidance and the direction to do the right thing for the most people. And I think that's servant leadership.
Love it.
When you think about it, or at least for me, and I don't believe it's alien, the times we feel the best about ourselves as human beings is actually when we're not thinking about ourselves.
100% agree with you there.
Yeah. So, because we're just encumbered with all this me. I'm offended. I'm upset. Whatever it is. Even self-loathing is a form of self-centeredness.
Mm-hmm.
So, the biggest job that I have is to stay open and to surrender, my will to this higher power, again, to do the best for everyone concerned. And we don't do it perfect. Nope. We do make mistakes, 100%. I've made lots, and I've got lots of scars. So it's like, oh no, I'm happy to share those experiences with others to be able to help them avoid the same jackpots, right?
Yes.
And man, and I've had some really profound and significant experiences in the course of my recovery. I've had 3 near-death experiences.
Wow.
One time, those are all in the course of a year. So it was like the universe saying, hey man, something needs to change in your life. And I'd been sober a long time, and there was just some things that needed to change. But the last of the 3 experiences, one was a roof, the other was a mountain motorcycle trip, and a semi, and the last was I was choking. So something as simple as that. I was in the kitchen, nobody was at home, and I had grabbed a handful of trail mix, and I threw it into my mouth, and it stuck to the back of my throat, and I was carrying my daughter, and I'd had first aid the week before, so I knew what was happening.
Wow, how lucky.
And all I remember, and I couldn't get any air in, and I couldn't cough. So I put her down on the ground. I didn't want to drop her, and I started heading towards a chair, right? Because I thought I would do that. And in that moment, as I was heading towards the chair, it just started to go black from the sides. Like you're totally conscious, but it's not like in the
Yeah, yeah.
And I remember having that feeling, that thought. It was not now, and not like this. I've got way too much to do, and I did go out, and while I was out, it felt like I was surrounded by people.
Oh my gosh.
And during that, like, it was pretty profound.
How did you you just came through in that moment? Did somebody give you CPR or something, or how did it just came dislodged or something?
I was
Wow.
alone. I was alone with my daughter.
Wow. So,
Yeah.
okay, now we're talking miracles because I don't think your daughter knew first
Yeah.
aid.
No.
Right?
No. Exactly.
That's
And
amazing.
in throughout my life, I've had a few profound experiences that I would have to be completely ignorant to chalk it up to coincidence.
Yeah.
You know.
Wow.
And so, I mean, when I think about coming out to Cedars, and Cedars is an amazing place. Like, let me see what I can do for you out here. Just to give you an idea of
Yeah, please
what we're
do.
looking at.
Oh
So
my gosh.
this is some of the. We have 60 acres.
Beautiful.
Yeah, we have 60 acres, 5 kilometers of walking trails.
Amazing.
I mean, I come to work every day. It's like coming to summer camp.
Right?
And
Wow.
just look, what do I got here? Something. Okay, well, you can edit this or not. I don't
Yeah,
know.
we'll edit that out. It's all good.
Let it
Come
roll.
on. We're just being real humans.
Yeah, let her roll. But
Yeah.
so coming out, so I got a call from. I got a call from a headhunting firm.
Okay.
I think I might have mentioned that to you before. And when they had called, they said, "We have something," and I said, "No, I'm not interested. I'll stay at Fresh Start."
Yeah.
Wonderful organization in Calgary. And we built that together to be one of the largest in the province, in the country, and huge success.
Amazing.
I would say they're akin to the Last Door in New West, that sort of
Okay.
feel, that recovery community feel.
Okay.
So one organization I'm super grateful to be affiliated with through Cedars is the Last Door.
Mm-hmm.
So I got a call, come out here, and I first said no. Like when they called and they said, "Well, do you even want to know what it is?" And I
Amazing.
said, "Okay, what is it?" And they said, "Well, it's Cedars on Vancouver Island." And in that moment, I wasn't like thinking. So what I said was, "Send me the information."
Okay.
And I think in my head, what I was thinking was, "We can find you somebody.
Mm.
Like we'll be able to find you somebody because we need some allies in the community."
Okay.
But I heard of Cedars because in 2015 we were in Ottawa working on the National Commitment to Recovery. There was 50 organizations coast to coast to coast, and one of the
Right.
fellows that was there, his name was Neil Berger. He was the original executive director of Cedars, and I remember thinking, man, this guy's super passionate about recovery. I like his politics around recovery.
Wonderful.
And there were some other guys connected to him, O'Malley and Baker and those guys, and Smith, and I liked that feel, not thinking anything of it. So that I said, send me the information. And I had someone close to me say about 4 years ago, "Hey, where can I send my wife?" And I said, "You can send them to Cedars. They do some good work out there."
Okay.
And so when I had said, "Send me the information," somehow I think they took that I was interested,
Of course. Yeah.
and they were persistent, and that was good. But really, that's a turning point in my life. So I'd spent almost 18 years at Fresh Start, and we had just acquired Lethbridge, and we were building Lethbridge, and we built the apartments and this great big facility, and the recovery momentum and movement with Fresh Start and their alumni was huge. So I'm like, I thought I would retire there.
Right.
And I think it was a shock to a lot of people that I left. But I give it to my higher power, and I said, listen, like, if this is not what you want to have happen, do not let it happen.
Wow.
And we were living in Carstairs, north of Calgary at the time, commuting, and
Okay.
and there was some issues. Small town, kids stuff. We've got lots of kids, and they weren't thriving. They
Right.
like some were, but not all. One of the things that helped shift was that the family that built Cedars. So there's a father. He was a co-founder, long-term recovery
Hmm.
guy. His other son is in recovery, and then his other son doesn't need to be, but brilliant guy. This is a legacy business. And so, to make a long story end, it all just flowed. And it made way for a lot of movement at Fresh Start for other people to advance. Bruce wound up taking the executive director position. Bruce Holstead, he was actually, there's a picture on my bookcase of him and I together there.
Okay.
We worked together at Fresh Start for about 15 years.
Beautiful.
And so he ended up taking that role, and then others got to move up. But coming out to Cedars, it was like, I know the feel was like, who's this cowboy from Calgary wearing cowboy boots and jeans into our community and all that. And so coming October, it's 3 years
Amazing.
the chair, immense amount of change, huge amount of change. I was able to bring on some incredible staff to help complement. My CFO, COO, she's brilliant at what she does. There's just tons. There was a pyramid sort of org chart kind of structure, not actual, but we flattened that out. So leadership and management work together to bring about the best outcomes for everybody that we serve. We implemented an alumni program here, which is now just exploded. We have a huge event this Saturday. We anticipate 600, 700 people here.
Wow.
And I love what we're doing and who we are.
I love that.
So I think today we have 124 staff.
Wow.
When I got here, there was 73.
Wow.
And I think we've probably cycled out most people. Like, I think change is hard for everybody, and I'm not everybody's cup of tea. So, my biggest job is to help people take ownership. And I felt like we had a lot of thoroughbreds here that needed to run, and
Okay. Good way of putting it.
yeah, and so it when you look at your life and you're looking back and all this stuff, you're trying to weave it together, trying to make sense of it. I have trust without reservation, and I'm here now, and I think about all the different parts that led me to here. I can't really question some sort of divine guidance in the process.
Yeah, I do want to ask you some questions about that. I want to just circle back and I don't know how much you know about my story specifically, but I struggled with addiction as well. I think from my experience, I struggled with my first addictions was sugar for sure, sugar and TV and video games and carbs and stuff like that, and then it grew into alcohol and drugs and pornography and sex and all that stuff. I was a rock and roll musician at one point, and I think probably my past self would have looked at a treatment center and go, oh, there's no way I can do that. Like there's no, just not a chance for me. So I think that you talked a lot about the moment when somebody's going to decide to enter into a treatment. There's a period where you said enough is enough, right? You were struggling with the sense of not feeling enough for yourself, but there was a point where you go, I can't do this anymore. This is enough is enough, and and there's just this moment where you just have to give up and say, I'm going to do this, and I think that people that are thinking about joining a treatment center, there's these things, there's a sort of like a common thing that happens. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about like what are some of the states that people are in when they are about to seriously consider joining Cedars? I'm sure you have an onboarding process. I mean, dive into that a little bit, but look, where are they at? What are they thinking about their lives? What are they generally? Where are they at before they join? Is it just like, are they living on the streets, or are they, CEO of some sort, or what are the types of people that would join, and what are they thinking about? What are they struggling? How are they feeling about themselves in the moment before they join?
Well, so I'll answer that, but first of all, again, like, thank you for your kind comments. And when I say, you'll hear me go, well, I this or I that, like, it's a very small I.
Yeah, yeah,
Like, it's a lowercase I, it's a we, and because the opposite of addiction is connection. And even if you don't have addiction, I mean, the predictor of longevity. I was reading a study out of Harvard. And people were speculating that, oh, they don't smoke, they don't drink, they don't do all this, and well, it's not. It's the relationships that they have in their life.
yeah.
Like, we live for the people in our lives, right? We don't live just like for stuff, So no trunk on a coffin, anyways.
Yeah.
And what do you're a musician? What do you play?
Well, I played rhythm guitar, and I was the singer in an acoustic rock band.
Dude, me too.
Oh, wow, that's
I've played
amazing.
drums since I was like 11 years old.
Cool.
I toured every little one-horse town. We played all these nasty little bars and lots of shows and stuff like that. There's stuff on the internet still getting radio play.
Oh,
It's
that's so cool.
we should jam.
We should try. It's been a while. I pulled out my guitar. I made a choice once. I said I'm either gonna go into psychotherapy or I'm gonna go into music. And we had a chance to. We had a pretty well-known producer, no manager that could have led us down that pathway. But then as soon as we had that meeting, when she said, "Yeah, I think you guys have something," the band just fell apart. So that was a divine guidance too, because I probably would be dead by now because I didn't see any reason why I should stop drinking and doing drugs. And here I am.
Yeah. So now that's it. I mean, that's a kind of a good segue into what you had asked about. I think, as you and I both know, that like, addiction doesn't discriminate. It doesn't color. It's no consequence what color, your socioeconomic background. It doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. We were talking again about the ACEs,
Yeah.
and the old argument was nature nurture, right? Well, it's
Right.
your environment or it's your genetic predisposition, and lots of argument for a long time. Turns out, with epigenetics, irrefutable science tells us that everybody was right. So your environment can change your brain chemistry, thereby making you more susceptible to addiction by about 400%. Turns out, and the negative health impacts from having all these adverse childhood experiences, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever.
Hmm.
In the scale, there's actually, 4 or more, is your negative health impacts are about 400% higher negatively than the general population.
Right.
And the number one is heart disease, which I find interesting because people are dying from a broken heart.
Right.
I did a couple of TED Talks, and I used that work, the ACEs work. If you go to albertafamilywellness.org and
Okay.
check out Brain Story Certification, you can get it through that at your own time for free. When we did it back in the day, it was like 3 years to get it.
Okay. We'll link that in the comments.
100%. And albertafamilywellness.org. So doing these TED Talks, I take this work out there. The last one I did was like a TEDx. It was at AltaLink, and I took my daughter and I kind of made the talk, about her and stuff like that. And one of the things she said to me at the end of it, she's like, "Dad, there was so many people crying." And I wasn't there to talk about addiction,
Right.
right? I was talking about those other parts, the void, and some people fill it with drugs and alcohol. Some people fill it with the sex, the gambling, the name it, work, whatever.
Yeah.
And so when I say that addiction doesn't discriminate, it doesn't care where you come from. So, if you look at the stages of change, you can break all that down, or you can just say, when somebody has a look at themselves and they realize, I'm not who I thought I was. When there's that piece inside of them that says, I can no longer live like this. I can no longer continue to hurt myself, my family, my friends, my colleagues. It's a shift that happens on the inside. And, there's that. It's funny when we look at the types and stages of addiction. So from initial to crucial to chronic stage. In the chronic stage, there's a funny little characteristic in there, and it says vague spiritual desire. What is that? Well, that's that inner peace that says, hey man, we can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
Like, I just can't deny the fact that I am this guy or girl.
Yeah.
And it's brutal for family members to watch this happen, because somehow they think it's their fault. And if nobody's ever told you that it's not, let me be the first to say, their addiction has never been, will never be your fault. You didn't cause it, you can't fix it. You can only look after yourself. And addiction's a family illness, impacts everybody. So here's what else I think, Robert. I think, like, man, we all get a journey, and if yours happens to involve, addiction, then I think when that shift happens on the inside and there's a sincere desire to want to change it, it's a funny thing that happens. The universe starts to line up in our favor when we're sincerely putting out to the universe that, like, I need help. Then things start to line up. So, we have 31 publicly funded beds here at Cedars. We have the 60 acres, 74 beds. We're expanding. We're doing another 20 beds in the next couple of years here. We're under construction right now. But 31 of our beds are publicly funded. So if you live in British Columbia or on Vancouver Island, we have an avenue through which you can access funding to come to treatment. Now, I often say to people, like, treatment's not recovery.
Yeah, maybe we could define those concepts, like, what is addiction, what is treatment, and what is recovery?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's a whole lot around, like, what is addiction. There's a whole lot of science out there. Essentially, addiction, it's a chronic brain disorder, lacking impulse control, obsession, compulsion, craving. Talk about, being limited to this class. Like, I've seen social drinkers, and when a fly lands in their drink, they're not like, spit it out, spit it out, spit it out. They're like ordering a new drink, and then they leave half of it. It's, like I say, the obsession, the compulsion, the craving, and in the last 10, 15 years, the drugs that are out there, the addictive properties are so exponentially high, it's pretty rare that we find your garden variety alcoholic these days. That said, recovery is open to anybody that wants it. And we deal with a lot of co-occurring disorders. So, and the line I follow is that, there are those with grave mental and emotional disorders, but even they do too recover if they have the capacity to be honest. So somebody with a sincere desire can recover. Mm-hmm. And for me, that's watching people recover their lives and see the hope and the families reunited and healed, and watch that light come on. And they say, oh my God, this is the first time in my life I've ever felt this way, I've ever done this, and stuff like that. And I want to kind of remind them that this isn't, you didn't learn it new today, this is you remembering. They believe that all of us come into the world happy, joyous, and free, and through whatever set of circumstances we find ourselves in, smash. And so now we have this table, which called recovery, and we can put these pieces back together. Now you get two camps out there. You got harm reduction, you have recovery, and we do some harm reduction out here. Most reputable accredited organizations will, opioid agonist therapy, we do that. Just because what's happening out on the landscape. And for us, when we wrote that commitment in Ottawa in 2015, we said there's many pathways to recovery. We want some repair in all these different parts of your life, but we talked about a consistent pursuit of abstinence, or remission. And so if we're working in a harm reduction model, we can build a bridge between the two. So let's meet people where they're at, but let's not leave them there. Let's help them get along. I spoke at an opioid conference in Ottawa some time ago. Anyways, I was like the recovery guy, and then it was a panel of physicians and that kind of thing. And there was a fellow there. He'd apparently been the longest. What was reported to me was he'd been the longest user of methadone in Canada. So he was since he was like 50 years, since he was like 13. He was 60 or whatever it was, 63 or he said to me, he looked at me, which was so telling. He just said, when someone talks to you and they're just like soul to soul, and this guy grabbed me afterwards and he's like, man, I just want to know what it's like to be completely free of anything before I die. Wow. It's like, oh man, like this is, you're on that for life, and you don't have to be. I'm no doctor, but I've watched a lot of people transition off of opioid agonist therapy to recovery and live amazing, productive lives.
Wow, that's amazing. I wanted to kind of explain to the audience a little bit about the different programs and services you offer at Cedars, because there's quite a few, and your approach is a holistic approach, right from right the moment the person joins treatment to long after they're out of the center itself. So maybe kind of share a little bit about what can somebody expect from day one to whenever they are done, would you say?
Yeah. So, where I come from is in Calgary. We did cohorts, and you would be in a cohort. Someone would come into treatment. They'd be in a cohort for, 14 weeks, right? 16 weeks. And there was no set time frame. Once they were completed, they could stay and do all that. Cedars also has post-treatment housing as well as post-treatment supportive recovery housing. We have that on the mainland. We're looking to get some here, but it's a little different. Like that was something I had to kind of get used to, because it's a continuous intake. So you have intake every single day, and you have people leaving almost every single day. Interesting. And so you have, out of the 74 people that are here, you have, and that one of the other beautiful things that we have is a full medical detox. So we have doctors, we have psychiatry on staff, we have 24-hour nursing.
So it doesn't matter what the shape is of the person coming in, they're going to have the appropriate care.
That's right. And so, but the difference here is that the kind of the long stay is 90 days total. Okay. And it's a very individualized program, although they have home groups, which they have a cohort of people that can bring people in and out. And each person, there's a laundry list of treatment norms that each person gets assigned, like different activities for them post detox. And how they progress through that determines their success, really. And beyond that, for every person that comes into treatment at Cedars, they get a year of continuing care that stays with them. So that is, weekly meetings with a counselor and continuous follow-up groups for that whole year. Plus, they're kind of inducted into the alumni, and we have weekly meetings here and then monthly milestone celebrations. And that we stole that from what we did in Calgary, because it works.
Yes.
Right. So the bigger the recovery community you can build, the better momentum you have, and So.
And for alumni from Cedars, there's I'm imagining there's a sort of culture that happens with Cedars that I'm sure you're a big part of growing, and then there's things that people will learn from this wonderful place, and then that's the information that people can lean on when they're out in the community more. Versus, I'm sure to some degree, anybody that's ever been through any kind of recovery center anywhere, there's a sort of appreciation and a fellowship, I'm sure, to some degree. But you kind of know what you're going to get when you're alumni from Cedars versus some other place. So I think that could be really amazing. It's one of the things that, as a therapist, I work with addiction, but not nearly to the degree that you guys do. I can't help anybody detox or anything like that, and I don't work with the dependency side of things. But knowing that, in the recovery world, one of the most valuable things that I love is the community itself. That if somebody's struggling at 3 o'clock in the morning, they could say, "Hey Jim, I'm thinking about using here," and then they'll be like, "Okay, where are you? I'll be there in 30 minutes." And that's the kind of level of connection that's just next to none. That's just incredible. I love that. And then in terms of what Cedars offers too, I know that you have a family program of some sort, and because it's not just the person, it's the whole system that they're a part of that has to work. Right, they're going to do this incredible transformation in 90 days, let's say, and then they have this year-long aftercare, but then they go somewhere, right? Then they have to either they go back into their life somehow, but they're changed, and so then the system has to change as well to some degree. Do you agree with that, or what are your thoughts?
I do. I completely agree. So we do also have a family discovery program, and those 31 publicly funded beds for everybody that attends that, they automatically get the Discovery Family Program. Anybody can take the Discovery Program, whether they've had somebody here or not. It's open to anybody that's been impacted by somebody else's addiction. Because regardless if the individual that's afflicted gets help, they still deserve help as well. One of the biggest things that I think, one of the biggest barriers around actually getting help for people is the stigma. And especially in a downturn, people aren't going to come forward and ask for help in a downturn. They don't want to lose their jobs. But we did a life and recovery survey. I think we did 2015, 2016 out of CCSA.
Yes.
And, there was a bunch of us that sat on NRAC, National Recovery Advisory Council, and we developed this life and recovery survey, and it went out to 850 Canadians in recovery, and over 70% of them responded and said they didn't ask for help because they didn't want to be judged.
Right. In this show, Stacey references a survey he was involved in from the Canadian Centre on Substance Use and Addiction called Life and Recovery from Addiction in Canada, and it's just too valuable not to add it in here. So here are some actual testimonials from real clients who were surveyed as to why they started their journey in recovery. So the first one reads, "My life was out of control and I was near death." Next, "I was miserable and broken. I didn't want to live anymore and I was a slave to alcohol. Every aspect of my life was in turmoil because of my addiction." Another wrote, "I was sick and tired of being sick and tired." And another, "I was at a crossroads, death or recovery." Another said, "I felt depressed and worthless because of the life I was leading." Another said, "I was becoming more and more disgusted with myself and was contemplating suicide daily." Another said, "I was broken, empty, and suicidal." Another said, "I was unable to stop drinking on my own and I desperately wanted to stop. My wife was going to leave me and take my children away." Another said, "I grew up in an alcoholic family and wanted my young children to have a different experience." And another wrote, "I was losing my health, my family, and my profession. It gives you an idea of what people were struggling with and how they thought about life and themselves before joining a recovery center. We'll link the whole survey in the comments and the show notes below so you can read further. It's quite thorough and an excellent resource for mental health professionals, clients, and their families, and really anybody who wants to learn more about addiction in Canada. Anyway, back to the show.
Right. So
The shame.
I still believe this disease carries the stigma a lot based on what's visually out there, what we see, and because it also this disease impacts the brain the way others don't.
Yeah.
So when I'm in active addiction, my executive functioning is anesthetized and I'm not making great decisions, and that's what everyone sees.
Correct.
Right? So if you're diabetic, you're probably not going to steal someone's car, or you're not going to drive loaded to get to the,
Yeah.
right?
Yes. And it doesn't have to be just, I mean, there's certainly, I think there's a wide spectrum, I would imagine here, right? Where you certainly, I mean, you do have the people that might be on the streets, or they might be robbing, somebody or stealing a car. I think those exist on one end of the spectrum. And then, I've worked with, CEOs and celebrities and people that are by no means you would look at and go, yeah, they're really struggling. These are and from my opinion, the people that really go unseen, and it's a marginalized population, in my opinion. Those people that are still showing up to work, they still have a family. Things haven't quite fallen off to the point where they're maybe going to commit suicide or get help. Maybe they have to get there to some degree, but I think that everybody here needs help, and that stigma. Hopefully, we can change some of that today with this what we're doing on the show. But everybody could use this.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. I mean, so what do you say to people that want a way out, right? And maybe I would highly recommend they go check out a 12-step program, go look up a therapist, go see Robert, whatever it is, just do something. Listen to that, do something, because when we did that commit, we also said many pathways to recovery.
Right.
So whatever that is for you, I know guys that have, they've gone to religion, and some have gone to meditation and physical fitness, the Terminator Foundation in Calgary. That's a great group.
My addictions ended when I had my kids. That was for me, that was it. I was alcohol and cocaine were my drugs of choice. When I had my son, I said, okay, yep, I can't do cocaine anymore because there's a good chance that I'll die. I'll get one of those laced, baggies, and that's it. So that I can't do that, but I kept drinking still. And at some point in time, my daughter came along, 2.5 years later, and I said, you know what, I'm going to stop drinking. So for me, that was like, okay, I just stopped that stuff. The purpose was so powerful. But that's not the case for most. In fact, some people, that's great, you can just stop, but some people can't. And I'm curious about, from your perspective, Stacey, and Cedars maybe, there's the idea of relapse. When people come in. So if people are thinking about, I'm going to go into this, am I going to never have another urge again, or what's your perspective on relapse? Can you speak more of that?
Relapse is part of some people's stories. Relapse is definitely part of other people's recovery journey. It was a part of mine. I mean, keep in mind, I got clean when I was 18 years old, but I started checking recovery out when I was 17.
Right.
So I was given her for a good year before I actually surrendered to the fact that I can't.
Yes.
So
that's it.
If we look at, think about it this way. If I take my mom to the cancer ward and I say, listen, she's got this tumor, I'm going to tell them I want 100% remission. I'm not going to say I want 75%. Right?
Yeah.
Now, so we get her into remission. She stays in remission for a while, and the tumor comes back.
Mm-hmm.
Do I hammer her into the ground like a tent peg, or do I love her and support her and say it's okay? And I can tell you, somebody that's afflicted with the disease, they already hate themselves enough. There is nothing anybody else out there can put on them that will make it any worse. So our job, I believe, is like, and you hold people accountable for sure. Like,
Right.
it's not a free pass that you get to create a whole bunch of chaos and not be accountable. Like, that's
Right.
not factual. People need to be, I know lots of guys that were arrested that felt like they were rescued. There needed to be some kind of intervention. How do I want to put this? Zero judgment about people that relapse.
Yes.
But most of it is absolutely predictable. Like when you watch somebody come in and they are over the top, willing to do whatever it takes, and then they go down that road, and then they start feeling better. They start getting the color back in their face. They start getting things back, people back. Things start to come in. It's great. And there's a key thing that I want to point out with all of that. And so then they stop doing the things that got them that helped them in their recovery in the first place. Like, they stopped talking to Robert on a weekly basis. They stopped going to meetings. They stopped, doing their yoga. They stopped doing these things because I'm too busy. And eventually, and addiction is really insidious. Not one of the biggest symptoms of relapse is exhaustion. I've got time for everything else except for me. And so here's a huge, if I could hammer this home, if this was the biggest message I got out today, people have said all these years doing this work, what do you think the difference maker is? What would be the difference maker? If you could find something to give to somebody, hit this switch in that, whatever, to help them in their recovery journey, what would it be? And I'm going to tell you, it would absolutely be self-forgiveness. Starting at the beginning. And so I tell, we do all patient meetings, and I tell our patients 2 words I want you to start saying to yourself today on a daily basis: I forgive you and I love you. Because I'm telling you right now, it may sound, whatever, I don't care how it sounds, but the reality is if we don't get to a place of some sort of self-love and forgiveness, because most of us aren't psychopaths, we know the shit we did when we were out there, and I'm relapsing because I hate myself and I need to be punished too.
Wow.
Right? But if I can get to a place of self-forgiveness, a couple things. This life that will come to me, I'm going to feel like I actually deserve it, or I'm worthy of it, not in that entitlement kind of, but I'm worthy of it.
Yes.
Otherwise, I'm going to screw it up in the 11th hour, right? I'll blow it to pieces. I don't even have to get loaded to do that.
Yeah.
And that self-forgiveness and that self-love is like a magnet that goes out to the rest of the world to bring other good stuff in. Doesn't mean it's problem-free. Look, man, I've climbed a ton of big hills in recovery, lots. I've had, I've been to over 300 funerals. I've lost people really close to me. I've had, I've been divorced in recovery. We were married for 17 years. My ex-wife and I are really good friends. She ended up moving out here. And if you're going to stick around and you're going to start to do some good things with your life, be prepared to wear a bigger target. Because the haters, the critics, they want, for some messed up reason, they want you not to do well. You know what I'm saying? And they'll try to shoot holes and whatever. And I just tried I'm human, and some of that bullshit hurts my feelings, but I'm like,
We'll have to dive into that in another
Yeah.
show, but what you said is profound for a number of reasons, and I think one of the things that really stands out is when somebody decides to go through a process of transformation, their life is going to transform. which means that there's going to be other aspects of life that's going to, start and stop and go sideways, like life didn't all of a sudden just become easy like that over everything just works out. There's things that happen, and to know that there is, a place like Cedars that has such a community and has such an aftercare program that when life hits you from different curveballs and angles, that you've got a place that you can lean on. You got a place where you can get some help. And I feel like we could have dove in, deep in a number of different angles, because there's just so much. You have a wealth of knowledge and a wealth of experience, and your heart is just massive. And that's the type of people that I think everybody should have in their lives. So thank you for being a guest on the show. I want to obviously, for all of the people, tuning in, obviously this show can't exist without, people supporting. So please, subscribe, rate, leave a review, all of that. And when we post this on social media, feel free to leave a comment or questions there. And I want to give Stacey, just ask you if there's anything that's coming up with Cedars, or anywhere else that you would like to share, projects or upcoming events or anything like that you want to teach or to let people know about, and where can they find Cedars when they need it?
Well, yeah, first of all, Robert, thanks for inviting me today. I mean, I didn't really look at this as like, oh, we're doing a podcast. I probably look at it later going, hey, probably should have thought about that more. Just having a conversation with a friend. Check out cedarsrecovery.com. There's lots of good treatment out there. And Cedars isn't for everybody. We got tons of land-based teaching here. We have a lot of indigenous teaching that happens. We have our sweat lodge and sacred fire and river bathing, and we do a lot of different pieces. But it's not for everybody. So what I would say to people is, like, if you or somebody you love needs help, just start looking and put out to the universe, we're ready, we're willing, what can we, because sometimes it's hard to access services. And I would say, because you have a list of resources, I'd have people contact you. There's lots of people that have got clean in this world through 12-step recovery programs, and they don't work for everybody, but they work for millions. And so, maybe it's a session with Robert, a couple sessions to get your head kind of straight, and then you start going to meetings, right? Mm-hmm. Not everyone needs to go to treatment. So you really got to, follow your heart and find out what's best for you. And we'll have some more conversations. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here, Stacey. I really appreciate it. And I guess the main message is just, if you're thinking that you need some help, then ask the universe, say you're ready for it, and then just make a phone call. There's numbers and links that you can click on Stacey's website on Cedars, and or ask me about it, and I'll refer you and direct you, and that's how it works. So, Stacey, thanks for being here. We'll wrap this up, and then hopefully we'll have you back on some later time. Okay, man. Thank you again, and I'll see you when I see you.
Sounds good. Keep in touch.
Okay, thanks. You too. Okay, bye. I'm just so happy of how that episode went, and I'm so glad that you tuned in. I obviously there's been wealth of information shared from Stacey, and there's going to be all kinds of show notes and links and everything down below. And please, as I said in the cast, please comment and and let us know what you want to talk about next. If you have any questions or anything like that, I'm certainly happy to answer. From my perspective, I've worked with thousands of clients from all walks of life, from individuals literally living on the streets to CEOs working in the tallest skyscrapers, and many of them, struggled with addiction on top of their mental health concerns. We call it concurrent disorders. And I can confidently say nothing is more important than your health and well-being. As you heard Stacey say, he had 3 near-death experiences where he received the profound truth that the only thing that matters in life is connection. It doesn't matter how much money you have in the bank account, or how many trophies you have at a display case, or how many assets you've accumulated. If you don't have your health, you don't have anything. So this is your reminder to take care of your mind and your body, because your mind is your ticket to true freedom. I'm Robert Grigore, and this is the Mental Health Show with Robert Grigore. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next episode.